Hey everybody, I'm Zach. And I'm Jesse, and you're watching the Patreon bonus stories.
Would you like to see something funny?
Yeah.
All right, check this out.
A normally quiet neighborhood in San Francisco is now buzzing about a sudden explosion of traffic.
And neighbors say that a dead-end street, has suddenly become crowded with Waymo vehicles.
They asked us to look into it, and Wilson Walker joins us live from the Richmond district. Wilson, what'd you find?
Well, Liz, here at 15th and Lake, this is hardly, Union Square or the ballpark, Fisherman's Wharf. This is not a busy intersection by city standards by any measure, but they are seeing a lot of one kind of traffic here. It is kind of funny when you watch it happen, and the neighbors are certainly noticing.
And I noticed it while I was sleeping. I awoke to a strange hum that I thought there was a spacecraft outside my bedroom window.
The visitors Jennifer King is talking about don't just come at night. They come all day right to the end of 15th Avenue where there's nothing else to do but make some kind of a multi-point turn and head out the way they came in. Now, not long after that car is gone, there will be another which will make the same turn and leave before another car shows up and does the exact same thing. And while there are some pauses, it never really stops.
There's some days where it can be up to 50. I mean, it's literally every 5 minutes, and we're all working from home, and so this is what we hear. Yeah, this is what we hear.
At several points today, they showed up on top of each other. These cars packed with technology, stopping in a queue as if completely baffled by a dead end.
Don't really have a preference either way, but it is a little bit odd that they're over here so much.
And especially across a slow street into a one block street. It's a little bit peculiar.
Have you ever seen them pick anyone up or drop anyone off?
No. They're just, I think, doing their testing.
So it's definitely they're exploring something on this little piece of land on 15th.
The frequency of the visits is sparking conversation in the neighborhood, but for now, neighbors can only guess as to what exactly is causing this.
We have talked to the drivers who don't have much to say other than I think it's just programmed and they're just doing their job.
All right. Now, a little speculation here from myself and the neighbors here who are all talking about this. Everybody's talking about it. You heard about the slow street, which is Lake here, and then you got the dead end on 15th here. And then, if you know the neighborhood, what effectively might have been made is some sort of an eddy if you happen to be an autonomous vehicle who's trying to learn the streets of San Francisco, and you get over here and there's nowhere to go, and it seems like these cars are struggling to figure that out. Now, we did call Waymo, of course, to ask them about this. They said they would look into it, and they are glad that the neighbors have brought this to their attention. They're going to look into it and see what they can do. We are live here in San Francisco. Wilson Walker, KPIX 5.
All right, so Teslarati tweeted out, Waymo self-driving cars invade San Francisco street in most bizarre way possible, and Elon tweeted out, haha. Yeah, so basically, for those, news sites that keep saying that Waymo's in the lead in full self-driving, it's like, this is just another piece of the proof that no, they're not. I mean, first of all, if you have that problem a couple times, why would you keep doing it? Why would your whole fleet for days on end be going to a dead-end street in San Francisco, doing a 3-point turn? You have drivers, like, they can be, hello, Waymo Central Office. Yeah, we seem to be going to the same dead-end street every day over and over again. Could we maybe reprogram something? Like, and that's just one example. Like, you might be like, no, Zach, I'm sure they can fix that. Yeah, I'm sure they can too. But this just shows
They haven't, though.
that they haven't,
Right.
that they can't. I mean, what if this were something dangerous?
This shows to me kind of a typical software kind of thing. And I don't want to insult any software developers. It's not your fault. It's usually your manager's fault, which is just...
So now you're insulting software managers.
Well, no, listen. It's more just the way that things get tackled and the order in which they get tackled in. I think that, it's like, well, write a ticket and we'll get to that when we get to that. That'll be in 6 sprints or whatever. That's going to be in a couple, whatever. That's not going to be in this latest patch because we're very busy working on something else. Whereas with Tesla, they have such strong leadership, i.e. Elon, that Elon would go fix this right now.
Well, something else that just impressed me the other day on Twitter, Andre Kaparth, who's the head of Tesla's AI division, tweeted out that he tried a new line of code, basically one new function that he used in Python, basically a algorithmic, basically an algebra function. He changed it to a different function. He got a 10% faster data upload time. I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not a programmer. But first of all, he said it on Twitter. So he's told the world. Then a whole bunch of people are like, oh yeah, and try this and try that and try that. Like, that's unheard of. Do you understand that? Like, nobody at Waymo is going to tweet out like, oh, we did this on our line of code. Right. He actually put a couple of the lines of code in the tweet. Right. And, Lex Friedman started talking about it with his guests, and they're like, oh yeah, you can get, like, that's unbelievable. That's the speed with which they work. And they're thinking outside the box on everything they do. And they're not even like trying to keep it hidden.
Right. I just feel like Waymo is that typical company where you have these balkanized groups of people where like the testers, I'm sure, are just pissed that they're always ending up down these streets, and they probably have already asked like, hey, can I just like take the left instead of going down the street? I don't want to go down and they're like, nope, well, we need to, you can't, we have to test it the particular way.
Here's the biggest thing. Look at the cars they're using. Jaguar I-Paces, arguably one of the least efficient EVs. Then they're putting on, all of that stupid hardware when they could have bought Teslas, used their own software on them, and be at least getting more efficient EVs. But instead, no, we can't possibly use our competitor's car. Well, then you're idiots, because you're not a car company. You don't make cars, and yet you chose one of the worst, most expensive cars.
Honestly, I don't think that they could have used Teslas.
Why not?
I mean, they would have to basically rip all the hardware off of them.
Sure, but that's what they did in the I-Paces.
That is a good point.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, at least the body of the car would have been efficient. You're using them all day.
But it's much harder to market to traditional OEMs, which I'm sure is their, like, end goal? What is Waymo? What do they do?
They're just a pile of money. I mean, I'm sorry, but Google is just a pile of money. And I think it's great that they're trying different things. I'm not saying they shouldn't try and innovate. But when you throw too much money at a problem, you don't always get great results.
You end up with this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a government. I mean, it's almost like how governments like just keep throwing money at something. And of course, just like the government contractors are like, why would I speed up the process? Mm-hmm. Why would the programmer speed up the process?
That's true. They have a very
I got a job for life.
I know. That's right. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at this. This is a thank you from the people of Brownsville to SpaceX.
Well, I've always thought about Elon and the whole SpaceX community that has come and invested in us, actually put us back on the map in a very, very positive way. And so as a community, we've never, ever said thank you to Elon or the SpaceX people, and it was just time for us to do something for them. Everybody needs a thank you every once in a while when they do something good. And that was just an idea, and then I pitched it to some other people, and they thought that was a good idea too, so it was just one thing led to another. So that's how that happened.
They're so excited to be here. I mean, this is like they're famous worldwide. They come here and take a picture by the sign or get to go on a tour, and it's just cool. It's a cool experience. Over 400 kids have visited and been able to see the facility, actually talk to engineers, and get to see the rockets being made in the process. So we're just really thankful for having them here in the community and for just giving kids opportunities to be involved in science and actually see like there's science going on in your backyard. Many of our kids live just at the end of this road before you head into Brownsville, so this is like their backyard.
They're really doing a lot of things. They're giving our youth an opportunity to dream bigger now and actually feel comfortable about their future here in the Rio Grande Valley and surrounding cities. Not just Brownsville, but Port Isabel, Laguna Vista, Rio Hondo, San Benito, everything south of McAllen, all the way down here. It's opportunities for everybody. As a community, we have to give back, and we can't obviously give that monetarily, but we could at least give them a thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thanks for organizing it.
Well, thank you for coming. God bless you.
Yeah, and so Cosmic Perspective tweeted out this morning, Brownsville residents and students organized a thank you celebration for SpaceX, Starbase, and Elon. Over 400 kids have visited, talked to the engineers, and they get to see the rocket being made in the process. And that's from Jill Dominguez. And Elon said, thanks. And I just got a little teary-eyed when I saw that these people are like, thank you for coming here because you've given our kids hope. You've given our kids opportunities that they probably never would have had. Being so close to them physically means that they see that it's here and they go like, maybe I could be an engineer.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad in the sense that they need to be physically there to realize it. And that's where I think our education system is letting these kids down. Because let's say you're, I don't know, Des Moines. You still can be a SpaceX engineer when you grow up. It doesn't mean that because you're not in Brownsville that you can't. But are the educators of the world actually letting kids know that these opportunities exist? Are we showing them SpaceX launches? Are we, getting them excited about space? And I think that's why you and I really liked that Inspiration 4 mission countdown, I think it's called on Netflix, because it really shows you that like, if you want to go to space, you no longer have to be like a 20-year Navy veteran to do it. And if you want to be an engineer, there's 20-somethings working for SpaceX. Some of them didn't start their careers as engineers. Some of them started as violinists.
Right.
So you just have to be smart and dedicated.
Right. No, it was really inspiring. I really liked the idea of like a thank you. That's something that we don't, it's kind of fallen out of the culture or something. Like there's not a lot of like actual big gesture kind of thank you things.
Yeah, and all it took here was, the guy said it. Like he mentioned the idea to some other people.
Right.
They all like, that's a great idea. You get a school bus, you get some kids to make some posters, and you go down there and you thank them. And I mean, that probably opened up a lot of opportunities for those kids to actually meet some people, share some experiences, get some inspiration that they may not have gotten, because now it's like, I met some engineers there and they told me like, when you graduate from high school or college, like come back and see me.
It's really one of the most impactful things is to actually meet and go to places. If for those of you who either are thinking about college or going to college or thinking about a job or know someone who's about to do that, I would just encourage just take people places and ask questions and see. People are really nice when you're like, hey, I think you're great. People are like, well, what can I do for you? I am great.
Right.
And it's not just the SpaceX engineers. I've seen this happen pretty much all over the place. And in fact, every time we get to do an interview, we get all sorts of they're nice to us all of a sudden. Why? Because we just basically talk to them about what they do.
Right.
Not a lot of people get that, like when they go home from work every day. And so if you're, a person who's in, high school or, going into high school, going into college, I would say that contacting people for hey, could I have an informational interview?
Right.
I want to know about your job. I want to know about what you do.
Another idea is just if you're in high school or even college, put together a field trip. Talk to that science teacher and say, hey, can we do a field trip to whatever, the local MIT? Can we go to SpaceX? And because it's coming from a school, a lot of these places will say, yes, of course, we can do field trips. And then you get the advantage of being able to meet people like Jesse said. And I mean, that's huge because I know you're thinking right now, I can't just call up SpaceX. First of all, you probably can. I mean, if you reach out to someone in their PR department or marketing department, you probably can put together some kind of thing, but it's much more likely when it comes from a school or a group. Sure. And so that's another thing. If you got a club, if you're at some, your club in your high school or your college, reach out to some of these companies. And I know you're saying that's a lot of work just to get to meet someone. It is a lot of work. They're going to realize that you did that lot of work, and that's going to put you up the ladder rungs because they're going to go, whoa, these people took a long time to try and meet us. They're special people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just, and I mean, you can do it again individually as well. But I just think that these people are out there, not just at SpaceX, all over the world doing all sorts of different things, and whatever your passion is what you should follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that it was really impactful that they did this. I think that it was really such a nice gesture. It also shows how important SpaceX is.
Yeah, I mean, imagine when those kids go home to their families and we did a field trip today to SpaceX. SpaceX? Right. And then get those conversations going. And then maybe those families go take another field trip down there to, drive down. It's been so impactful to everyone we've seen in our community who's gone there and been this is life-changing to visit this place. Because imagine if you could go back in time and visit, the Apollo launch sites before Apollo was launched. That would stick in your family's collective memory for their lifetimes.
Right. And especially people who live nearby. I mean, they get to basically watch the launches just from their porches if you really wanted to.
And if you have little kids, so many little kids have talked about being influenced by something early in their life that as parents, we don't probably even think about. So, I mean, if you have little kids, bring them there because seeing those rockets might inspire them too.
Or just, showing them the Netflix series.
Yeah.
I mean, that was honestly super impactful for me. I can't even imagine if I was a kid. Like, when I was a kid, I did a whole project on Apollo 11, and I was, isn't this so cool? Those people were so not relatable. Like, you talk about Neil Armstrong, that guy he's like half robot. Not to dig on him or anything, but
Right.
to have the people that were on Inspiration 4, very relatable people, which I thought was really nice. And you're just like, oh, they went to space. I can go to space as soon as you, as soon as
I want to talk about Chris for a second.
Right.
So Chris is one of the 4 that went up. He basically filled out a contest during a Super Bowl. His wife had no idea that he had done that, first of all. He didn't think he was going to win. He was just a nice guy giving some money to St. Jude's. Then he gets a call. Hey, guess what? You won. So, we're talking, he had no preparation at all for going into space, and he did it.
Yeah.
And did it well.
I know. And I'm proud of I'm just so proud of all of them. It makes me so happy.
Right.
Also because just the fact that I just feel like, oh, well, I can do that now. It's not, I don't have to be a perfect human specimen.
And I'll be honest, that was the first time in my life that I thought that I could go, because I thought you had to train from when you were like a kid. And then I saw people like, oh, like Chris can do it. Then I guess I could do it.
Yeah, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Let's move on to this. There's a new video out from Tesla. We had thought that their latest video that we had seen about Tesla Glass was like maybe a one-off, but no, it looks like maybe it's a part of a series.
I thought it was part of a series.
You were right.
And
You're right.
I was right.
So check this out.
Welcome to the Tesla Crash Lab. Today we're doing a very special crash. We will be testing a pickup truck hitting a Model Y. As you see, it's a very small overlap. This is what we call an off-zone impact. This is the last piece of validation for what we believe is a world first.
Previously, the best way to design a safe car was for industry standard crash testing. And those crash tests are like a few grains of sand. Those grains of sand are meant to represent the beach, but in reality, the beach is infinitely complex. Every crash is different. With emerging technologies, there are new opportunities. Now we can look at the real world and design for that.
We're the only car maker in the world that has a fleet of well over 1 million cars on the road, fully instrumented from a sensing perspective.
We can know exactly where the seat is, we can know where the steering wheel is, we know if they're belted, we know when the airbag deployed exactly to the millisecond.
We know exactly what our fleet of cars is being exposed to out there. The richness of data we are collecting enables us to develop safety beyond the stars and beyond the ratings, and for situations which is simply not picked up by the regulatory rating test that we and all other car makers are doing.
Industry standard crash testing is focused on impacts directly into the door. We've noticed in the field that it's very common for impacts not to hit the door.
Once we found the gap in what the legal testing required and the types of crashes we saw from our fleet data, we decided to use our very detailed simulation models to run impacts in different locations, like this simulation here. And we use this to really tune down to the millimeter and down to the mile per hour, the threshold at which you need airbags and you don't need airbags. We use that to tune the airbags and the seatbelts for optimal safety.
Conventional systems don't detect this type of crash because it's not an industry standard. This new algorithm takes into account the current sensor set, interprets it in a new way, so that we can identify this particular type of crash and provide the optimum restraint for that situation.
After we ran hundreds of simulations, it was time to test this in the real world. We have 17 high-speed cameras running at 1,000 frames per second, and camera data forms an integral part of the information that we collect in a big test like this. In the back of the vehicle, in preparation, we have our instrumentation rack, and it's got all the critical infrastructure to make sure we get all the data we need.
So what will happen is that when this pickup truck impacts the Model Y, so within 10 milliseconds of impact, the system will have determined what type of impact this is. And then it will trigger the airbag system and the restraint system to respond in the best possible way.
3, 2, 1.
So we just finished the crash test. Looks like we have a home run result. The cars even ended up exactly where we predicted post-crash. The detection worked perfectly. We deployed the airbags exactly as we intended to, as we wanted to, and indeed as we predicted to. And I just had a look at the injury values recorded by the dummies, and they look beautiful. This feels awesome. This is history in the making, and this is really the end result of the entire chain of Tesla's strength in safety development, starting off with the field data analytics, lots of simulation, close cooperation between simulation engineers, design engineers, coming here to the lab, recreating this whole crash, performing it flawlessly, capturing the result. Now we have some post-processing to do to validate everything, but once that's done, this is in the pipeline for over-the-air updates to the fleet, improving the cars.
We have more data now than we've ever had before. We can understand real exposure, and then we can design our vehicles for that exposure.
We think over time this will change how you design for vehicle safety. It's all based on knowledge. I think this is just the beginning of a journey for us. The reasoning we're doing this is simple. It's because A, we have the ability, and B, it's because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so really smart here. I mean, you heard them. They're using real world data, not just designing to the test. And what do I mean by that? So we all know that there are different tests that governments and insurance companies use to test vehicle safety. And that's great. But auto manufacturers know how those tests work, and they can design their cars to perform well in those tests. Now, you may be saying, Zach, this is great. Auto manufacturers want their cars to do well in crashes. What can you possibly be complaining about? Well, as Tesla safety engineers pointed out, Tesla has more real-world data. I mean, they have 1 million cars on the road with cameras and sensors. They have more real-world data about how their cars get into accidents. And so they are seeing crashes in the real world that the older tests aren't testing for. So Tesla is making their cars safer for the real world and making tests to test it.
This is a pretty big shot over the bow of NHTSA. This is, if we're continuing to talk about NHTSA versus Tesla, this is a big old FU to NHTSA, because they're basically saying, yeah, government regulation's great and all, and it's great that we have regulators and people who want tests done, but we actually have much better data than them, and we're going to beat them to the punch every single time and make a car that is drastically safer. And the crazy thing is that they do that.
Yeah.
And that to me is buck wild.
And that's why I've lost all faith or respect for NHTSA, because Tesla has the safest cars on the road. No question, hands down, not only in an accident, but before you get into an accident. And yet, does NHTSA go out there and applaud them and go, hey, we just want to hold up Tesla as being the benchmark for what you guys should all be achieving in this market? No, they don't. They go on there like, Tesla, you're bad. And I'm so freaking sick of it, because this is another example where Tesla could just be like, hey, you know what, guys, we got the safest cars. Let's put that on hold and spend our money somewhere else.
Right.
They're not. They're going, how can we make them even safer?
Right.
And so they go, oh, it looks like in those normal tests, they have us hit the door. We've seen that most of our real world data shows that they don't hit the door. Let's figure out what we can do to make it even safer in what we think are going to be in the more common crashes. What I thought was really interesting is that in Tesla's predictive modeling, you heard the engineer say that the two vehicles that crashed ended up exactly where they thought they would be after the crash. So where we're getting to here is not needing to actually physically crash cars anymore. I mean, yes, we need to keep making sure that we're right. Mm-hmm. But if your predictive models keep showing that what you've just tested actually turned out to be true, then you can do more and more without having to crash cars every time. You can say, oh, well, what if this happened?
Right. You can make
virtually.
You can make a couple more assumptions before you crash a car.
Right.
And I think that shows that there is a different level of management over these engineers, because they are able to go way further than most engineers who are like, well, when I'm in charge of this bolt, and if this bolt doesn't exist, then I lose my job.
Right.
They don't have that problem at Tesla. They're just like, we got to make changes, and they make changes so frequently.
Yep.
When I was talking about the recall notices, I was like, there's 76 different Tesla models.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, because not only is there like the Model S60, the Model S60D, the Model S75, like not only were there all of those, and then, the model years, there's also times where they just made large changes.
Right.
And these were only the ones that had recall notices on particular bits of it.
Well, and here's the cool part. Like, we're all excited about the 4680s going into a structural pack. Tesla can be testing that out before they've even rolled a car off the line and go, hey, you know what? We need to make these changes before we start building the car.
Right.
That's incredible, because most car companies take years to make a car, then they test them, then they go, well, we'll improve that in 2 years from now.
Right.
Like, Tesla's so innovative. It's absolutely astounding.
And this was a great video to highlight all of that stuff. And I'm looking forward to more of this style of video from Tesla, because I think that it gives a really good sort of behind the scenes look about stuff that we all kind of know that they're already doing.
Right.
But it's great to just be like, you can just send it to your friend and be like, check that out.
Exactly. All right, here's another video. This is a video from the Australian government about Army trials of what they are calling the stealth reconnaissance e-bikes. Check it out. But what I'm excited about here, obviously, is that we're using e-bikes, and that if it's cool for soldiers, it'll open up the market to a lot of people like, soldiers use it, I can drive it. Now, here's the big part. First, I want to read this quote from Corporal Thomas Ovey of the Queensland Mounted Infantry. He explained, the footprint is minimized due to less power, less noise, and you're not kicking up much dust that could be seen by enemy forces. It's much more effective than a standard motorbike. They'll call us up. We'll get the stealth bikes out, head down there, and grab the information. It's a lot quicker. We cover more ground much faster, and it saves time instead of waiting for troops to come to us when they've found something. It's easier to punch out the e-bikes and return. I love all those words like punch out and stuff. But here's the thing. No one talked about this in the video, and if you're new to e-bikes, you may not have noticed it, but these are fat tire e-bikes. And I think that most of us in the world of bikes have never really given fat tire bikes much of a thought. And the reason is, if you were to jump on a regular bike without power and it had fat tires, you would have to do a lot more work to get that bike to move. And the only reason you'd want those fat tires would be to ride on a beach or to ride maybe off-road. But even off-road, you might be like, that's still a lot of extra weight to move around.
Right. You normally don't need that. And it's just, you only see it for like beach and maybe snow sometimes.
Right. So for most of us, fat tires, like, I don't even consider that.
Right.
But we've driven a lot of fat tire bikes. You should go check out our reviews. They're amazing. They change the bike experience. And because there's a motor, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like it added any more virtual weight for us. So that's what they're riding here. And that's why they can ride them anywhere, because they're basically motorcycles at that point. And these were, you know, a little bit more powerful, I think, than the average, you know, fat tire bike. But honestly, I mean, we've ridden ones by Ariel. We've ridden ones by a bunch of different brands that could do this. These are 51 kilograms or 112 pounds. So they're heavy. They carry 2 kilowatt hours of battery. So more battery than the average e-bike would have. They've probably, you know, made them super extended range, so they can have ranges up to 100 kilometers or 60 miles. That's if you're not riding them super fast, so let's be honest. They have speeds up to 50 kilometers an hour or 31 miles an hour, and they produce just 65 decibels of sound. And again, 65 decibels, that's us talking here.
Right.
So they're very quiet. And Norway and New Zealand are also testing fat tire e-bikes with their armed forces. And so this is a game changer. I'm really glad to see armies using them, only because I'm a pacifist, but only because I think it will open it up to a bigger market. Because as people see this, it'll trickle down and it'll become like, oh, that's cool.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's a lot of fun. So all of these troops, you know, coming home from training with, you know, from e-bike orientation, or I'm sure it's not called orientation. It's probably e-bike training, you know, exhibition,
stealth mobility,
fighting. Yeah, whatever it's called. yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to be like, oh, I got to get me one of those.
Right.
And they're going to look and they're going to be telling all their friends, because let me tell you, you wonder why we keep talking about e-bikes. It's because I've ridden one and I can't stop talking about it.
And it's not just you. I mean, latest numbers show that in the US, e-bikes are outselling regular bikes, not 2-to-1, not 3-to-1, 16-to-1. 16-to-1. And bikes are selling well, by the way.
Yeah.
So it shows that as people are experiencing this, they're going, no-brainer.
It's a real no-brainer. And I'm so excited that it's happening because it's a new form of travel that we just have not had.
And I just want to talk to like the middle-aged people out there. It makes you feel when you're on a fat tire e-bike like you are, I don't want to say invincible, but it doesn't make you feel vulnerable like bikes used to make me feel. I'd be riding along and I'd be like, oh, I got to get out of Dodge. Like I got to get through this intersection, or I have to, get through traffic. And I would feel like, okay, I'm going to have to huff it right now. And, can I make it up that hill? With a fat tire e-bike, really doesn't matter what the terrain is, doesn't matter if there's a hill coming up. I can just throttle my way out,
right,
and not break a sweat if I need to.
Some of the most dangerous times on a bike are crossing intersections, and that's a lot of times I've even seen this where they're in the wrong gear. You approach it, going at 30, you slow down. Now you're in 7th gear on the bike, and it's like, I can't get started. So then you have the guy kind of hopping across the intersection, which is super dangerous because they might fall over.
Right.
I've seen that happen where they're just like, uh-oh, not enough speed, fall over. And then you're flat on the ground in the middle of an intersection where people just want to go.
And then here's another part, is stuff. So normally you get on a bike and it's like, how can I lighten my stuff? I'm going to put in my lightweight shades. I'm going to take off my sweatshirt. I'm going to put in my spandex, all for, 2 grams of savings. When you get on an e-bike, you're like, I can pile on the stuff. I can go grocery shopping right now. I've got the ability to do that. And it makes the ride a completely different one. I think it makes it more of a Denmarkian ride or a Netherlandian ride where people use bikes for utility. And I think in the United States, because we were more of a Tour de France kind of thing, we got more into like, this is just for the experience, which is great if that's what you're into.
Sure.
But it's not so much as just day-to-day use.
Right.
Like
And
I'm going to go pick up my kids on my bike.
Right. And like, why did Amsterdam and Denmark like the bike so much, and why can they get away with heavier bikes? Oh, they don't. Oh, it's the flattest countries like in the world practically. Right. And it's like, okay, yeah, so that's like a great excuse not to ride your bike if you live in America. But hills don't matter if you're on an e-bike.
Don't matter. Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have the wonderful infrastructure, but that will come later. I think that it'll come later. I really do.
And I really would love it if you do trust us enough to try this, for you to write to us and to let us know if you found it useful.
Yeah,
because,
shoot a little video.
And I know for a lot of you, you're like, well, where would I even get a hold of one of these? The good news is there's more and more bike shops that are popping up that carry e-bikes. I'm seeing them in more and more towns now, and it's only been recently in the past year.
Right.
So I bet if you do a little hunt, you'll probably be able to find some places, and I'm sure they're going to be glad to give you test rides.
Yeah, and hopefully you can get one that isn't just around the parking lot,
right?
Because that doesn't really.
Yeah, no, go for a real spin,
and maybe you have to rent it, but it would be worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, last story here. So I've heard something about Deese and Musk hanging out.
Yeah.
What?
So let's just read this tweet here. With the new mindset and revolution in our headquarter, Wolfsburg, we can succeed the new competition. Good meeting with 200 top managers in Alpbach. Big responsibility at a crucial point for our company. Thanks for joining Aaron Meyer and Elon Musk. We will visit you soon in Grunhind.
Okay, so wait a minute. Whoa. We reported on this a week or two ago where Herbert Diess talked to 200 of his top managers at VW. Why would you bring in the competitor CEO to talk to your top managers?
Something is brewing.
Like something is brewing?
I think... So we know that Elon is friends with Herbert Diess.
Yeah.
They've taken pictures together. Elon's driven the i3.
Okay, but
ID3.
Even if I'm your buddy and we're playing against each other in the World Series, I don't just like go tell you what signs I'm going to be using during the game. Like we have to put on our game faces. Why doesn't he have to put on his game face?
At the latest shareholder meeting, he almost refused to dig on VW.
No, I know. He had an easy softball and didn't take it.
That one was just the juiciest slow ball over the plate. And he didn't take it. I think that there's something going on. Maybe they're thinking of doing something together. Some kind of like maybe, he had mentioned like they wanted to do a van, like Elon wanted to do some kind of a transit van.
Okay.
or maybe maybe some kind of joint battery factory in Germany or something. Like he needs friends in Germany.
I can see how this would benefit VW. Easily.
Yep.
I cannot see how it benefits Tesla.
Maybe, maybe Diess has been making the regulatory environment friendlier for Elon to get the Gigafactory up and running in Berlin.
Why not just hire him away? Like, I don't...
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, I thought that was going to happen, and I still think it could happen.
Well, I mean, so if Elon is truly after accelerating the advent of sustainable energy, you do want allies.
Sure.
You do want Diess. That's exactly the guy I would want in VW doing stuff. And if Elon's really serious about that goal of accelerating the transition, maybe you help him. Maybe you help your competition.
Okay.
I don't know. It doesn't.
I totally get them hanging out in private. I totally get, Musk saying, hey, hang out with me. I'll talk about some new stuff we're doing, blah, blah, blah. I totally get that. I don't see why you would publicly tell the 200 top managers at VW anything. Like, that just seems... I don't know. I would love... I mean, if any of you out there have any glimpses of what was said, I mean, someone maybe got some video of this or something.
Nope. I doubt it.
I do too, but
they probably have those little pouches that you get at the thing to put your phone in. Like they probably, I mean, this was probably the most locked down. I mean, there is a picture. There's just 2 pictures that Herbert Diess posted. So somebody took pictures.
Is this Herbert Diess's guarantee exit strategy where it's like, I told you so that in a year or two when VW is struggling, he can pull this out and go, I told you so, and then go bye-bye and go work at Tesla?
It would be really cool, right? Because it would basically be this huge upset that he would leave VW. He would be like, screw you guys suck.
I think this is it. I think this is a public, like you all know I now have an exit strategy. And so I think this is not necessarily, it's a get out of jail free card. It's like, I can use this at any point, guys. So if you want to screw with me, I'm out of here.
Why does Elon want this?
Because he knows that this helps Diess push VW forward, which is what you were saying is good for the whole EV community.
I guess it is super wild.
Look, you got to keep in mind, Diess has enemies. He has deep-seated, rooted enemies that are probably working. This is like House of Cards stuff, right? Where there's people working behind the scenes to get him out and get VW to go back to, their diesel scandal. I mean, come on. Like, these are the guys
the culture of the
that's
company.
The culture of the company. So these guys are not gone. They're deeply rooted in the company. And so I'm sure Diess has been trying to get some of them rooted out and so forth. But there's a lot of people in a huge company that would love to see him go because Diess is just making their lives horrible for them. Like, they're used to making the car one way and now all of a sudden they have to go electric. Like, they do not like that. So I'm guessing that Diess knows all this. He's a smart guy. He's been in the company for years. He knows the culture. And he's like, look, there's some diehards here that I am having trouble with. If I don't have some strategy to fight them, I'm going to lose or I'm going to be severely slowed down. And I think this might be that. It's like, hey guys, I can go work for Tesla. And then I'll just bring all of my best people with me. I'll bring all of my contacts in government, we'll just freaking crush you. Is that what you want? I'll go to the other team. Or I can lead you guys to success here.
Okay, so let's say that I'm one of these top 200 managers and I have my little...
your cabal.
My little conspiracy cabal of other top managers at VW, and we want to slow down Diess because we want to make bad cars inexplicably.
Well, no, you want your career, your career path is stalled at VW now, most likely. You're not going to be moved up because Diess doesn't like you.
Because I wanted to be a manager of diesel engines.
Yeah, I mean,
that was what I went to school for.
Yeah, and you don't believe in this EV revolution. You don't like electric cars. You don't think that Germany should be going in that direction. You don't like this whole automation thing. You don't like any of it.
Okay, so I'm that person, and Diess is basically saying, "Hey, I could leave. This is quite obvious. Here's Elon Musk talking to you on a screen on a stage. I could just go." Basically, he's implying it. He hasn't said that at all. He's just like, well, here's Elon Musk. And the implication is I could leave. Wouldn't I just go, great, get out of here?
Diess is talking to the directors of the company, to the board members, the people that make these decisions. The shot is over their bow saying, I can go and take all my top people with me.
Oh, okay.
The managers are, they're the lieutenants. Like, they can try and do whatever they want, and they are. They're probably working on some of the directors and board members, But I think this is Deese's way of saying to the board, look, you're going to have to stick behind me or else I'm leaving. And it's going to be horrible for you if I do. Because I do not doubt for a second. I think Elon would hire Deese in a heartbeat. I think Deese would be an amazing join to the company.
No, it's true.
For Germany,
if there's one thing that there is not a lot of in the world, it's good people.
Right.
And I don't mean like good people. I mean like people who
Deese is in the prime of his career.
Yep.
He's experienced. He's on board with the message. He knows everybody there is to know in the industry. Like, he'd be an amazing talent.
Yeah, I mean, if you put him at the helm of Giga Berlin,
yeah, and what's to follow, like,
ooh, that would be. I mean, and the "We will visit you soon" in Grunhind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like first of all, why would you get access to that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like Elon's getting invited to other manufacturers. Like, here's how we make our cars.
That's all I can think of. Nothing else that I can think of makes sense. I could be completely wrong. Please, comment below if you have some better ideas.
Yeah,
those of you in Germany, you might have a better plan.
I want to hear your take, seriously, because I'm not 100% buying Zach over here.
Yeah. And to your point, maybe there is some talk of a buyout or whatever, but I think that this wouldn't have been made public at all then if that were the case. Like, this would have been completely secret if there was ever going to be that kind of partnership. I think this is.
Do you think it's like further
brilliantly
down the line?
staged?
What? Let's keep going for just a second. Well, let's say it's a little further down the line. Deese knows that VW is going to start to shrink, and that's going to be very scary for shareholders, and the company might implode. Does VW kind of join Tesla, kind of like a Stellantis kind of thing, where they go, help, throw me the ring?
It's not impossible. I mean, let's talk about market cap for a second here. Tesla is bigger than all. We're going to talk about this on the tweets this week. Tesla is bigger than all the other auto companies combined, practically. So in market cap. So in terms of a joke, like years ago, you would have said, 3 years ago, you would have said like Tesla buying out VW. Was that a joke? No, it's not a joke. Like, on paper, you could see that this could work.
How much free cash does Tesla have?
A lot, $15 or $20 billion.
That, I mean, if VW had a couple bad quarters and started losing value.
No, I mean, I don't, politically, I have no idea whether VW would even ever consider this. I feel like their board is so entrenched that there's no way they would consider this. So, and I think that's who we're talking about here, are shareholders. And, VW is largely held by the Porsche family. So I don't, I don't see that happening unless there's been some major change. Maybe the grandchildren of the Porsche family are different than I think. But I just think this is a Deese move. And I think he's been brilliant about it. I think that he has a much harder row to hoe than we think. Like, I think that, we're thinking like 200 bright German managers. No, I think a lot of them are just not happy to be budged at all. Because it's like any entrenched company. They're not excited about changing the direction of the ship. Look at GM and Ford and Toyota. And I mean, none of these companies want to do anything different.
Yeah.
They all have to be dragged. They all don't want to stick their neck out. He's sticking his neck way out.
Yeah.
And so I think this is his like, okay, I'm sticking my neck way out, but I have a backup plan.
Right. At the very least, even if he goes down with the ship, in VW, I think that people will all agree that like he was trying to do the right thing.
And I just want to go forward a year or two. If he has to bail and go to Tesla, how big a piece of news is that going to be?
Oh my God.
In Germany, to see your biggest CEO go work for the competition gladly, like that is going to send a message to the whole country, being like, you guys, you're on the wrong track.
And all he would have to do is get on a couple of news shows, say a couple of things about like, VW.
Yeah,
doesn't know what they're talking
I tried
about.
really hard, everyone.
Yeah.
I tried to bring them into the next century, but they wouldn't come.
Ooh, would that hurt? Would that hurt VW? That would hurt.
I'm predicting it. I've been predicting it. I think that, I can't.
Okay, all right. Do you think this is a secret agreement between Elon and Deese?
No.
Do you
I think they've
this
already
is-
have the secret agreement in hand.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. No, I think
they talked when they were in
Yes.
the ID.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And Elon was like, "This isn't that great," and he's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm trying my best."
Definitely.
And
I think
Elon was like, "Okay, dude. Well, let's get you on, at Tesla." And he's like, "I have to try my best at VW."
Yep.
And Elon's like, "Well, use me however you need me."
Yep.
Let's move. Let's change VW. Let's do it.
Yep.
Because I see what you're doing here with the ID3.
Yep. And if it doesn't work out, you can work for me.
You can come work for me, and you'll probably make the bigger difference at Tesla, man. And he's going, "No, man, I have to try it for Germany, for VW. I have to try it."
Here's the thing. Herbert Diess went on a summer road trip with who? With his daughter. A daughter who's a 20-something, I got to believe, who probably gets it, probably surrounded by her other friends who get it, and who's feeding her dad like, Dad, do you get it? And her dad does get it. But I think he'd be happy to move to Tesla.
I'd be happy for him to move to Tesla too.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see if we're right. I don't know. I know it's a moonshot, but I think it could be what's going to happen.
And Germans, I would appreciate your opinion on this because obviously we're outsiders looking in.
Right. You have much more information about it, so
yeah,
exactly.
I totally want to hear what you guys have to say.
This would be great,
even if you're not German.
This would be great to talk about on our Investor Club Slack. I mean, I think we should have a channel here of like, will this move or something, and like we can talk about this because it's going to keep coming up. Yeah,
I mean, if this is.
It's a TV show.
It's exciting.
Let's make a TV show about it. Thank you so much for being our patrons.
Documentary.
Yes. Oh, it definitely will. It definitely will. And I hope someone there got some footage of this. I mean, I would have loved to have seen it. Thank you so much for being our patrons. You do make the show possible. Thank you. You know, if you're just at the $1 level, that's awesome. But we do have some amazing perks, and we just talked about the Investor Club. That's at $10 a month. And I know a lot of you are like, $10 a month? Hey, I get it. That's a lot of money. The whole point of the Investor Club is to make you money. And my whole point whenever I join some kind of investor newsletter or whatever is to try and make money off it. And in my early days, I was like, I'm not spending $100 on some investment club thing. What I quickly learned was if it's a good one, if I'm actually getting like one good stock tip that I wouldn't have thought of before, then I make my money back. And in this case, we're hoping to make more than your money back here. We're hoping to make you freaking rich.
Right.
Because the thing is, if you're not hearing about news all the time, about investing, a lot of people out there who aren't professional investors are not going to pull the trigger. Everything is motion based, right? You're always like, I don't know. You need some support to do it. I mean, that's why so many people just go to financial advisors, like, let him pull the triggers, which is fine if you're not capable of doing it. But with things that we know about, and if you're watching this, then you know a lot. If you know about stuff that's happening, like we're in the middle of a S curve, you can make money off of that.
Right.
So much of the world doesn't know this is happening. So join us over on the Now You Know Investor Club and let's make some money together.
And, you know, it's all about gaining experience, too, because you're going to feel more confident the more you're looking at things through the eyes of an investor. And that's kind of one of the things that we try and do through our Investor Club bonus stories is we're just bringing you stories every week. They might not necessarily be like the best stock tip of the week, but we're kind of going through our analysis of it. We're talking about how we're thinking about it, just to kind of get you in that mindset of thinking through different things. So that way, when you want to pull the trigger on something, you can be kind of going through it, not necessarily in the exact same way, but you can feel more confident.
Yeah. And this isn't a get rich quick scheme. This isn't like we're going to give you a stock tip and you just go do it the next day. This is work. I mean, investing is work. And if you're not into work, then don't join this.
Yep.
But we have a place, the Slack, where we have 1,600 plus members who all get it and who are all talking about these different things, and where we have experts in all these different things living all over the place. So for instance, when we start the Slack channel, we're going to have way more information than we had before, which is, if you think about it, pretty incredible.
Yep. So anyway, just something to consider, but we will see you next week for the Patreon bonus stories. Thank you so much.
Now you know.